The first Saturday in October haunts Creve Coeur, Illinois. What used to signify togetherness, cozy vibes, and festivity, now brings memories of panic, grim discoveries, and fear. It all started back in 2015. The whole town was preparing for the Fall Festival. This festival is an annual event where craft stalls, hot food and snacks can be purchased. It's a nice way to bring the town together. 9-year-old Annie Paling was excited about the festival and would be attending with her mother Clara and older sister Rose, who was 12. Her father would be working. On the day of the festival, Annie made an effort to look seasonal, pairing a dark beige skirt with a dark beige sweater, and finishing the look off with a headband that had 3 flowers stuck to the side. The colors were orange, brown and beige. Annie admired herself in the mirror, and set off with her mother and sister toward the Fall Festival. On arriving, Annie noticed how bustling the festival was. It looked as though everyone in town had shown up. Annie could smell the sweet smell coming from the candy apple stall, mixed with the onions frying at the burger van. There was a table allowing children to carve pumpkins. Annie tugged on her mother's arm on seeing this. "Mom, please, can we stop here?" Annie's mother relented, and Annie soon got a chair and started creating the scariest face she could come up with. Rose felt too old to be taking part in carving pumpkins and asked her mother if she could go get a hot dog, to which Annie asked if she could have one too. Not wanting to leave Annie, but knowing Rose would struggle to carry back food for everyone, she asked Annie to make sure she stayed exactly where she was. She explained to Annie she would just be over by the burger van, pointing out the spot where the van was parked. Annie nodded and carried on carving her pumpkin. Whilst waiting in the queue to be served, Rose noticed a clown stood off to the side, alone. The clown looked out of place. He wasn't taking part or on a stall, he was just stood there watching people. Rose pointed him out to her mum, who was only half listening. Rose couldn't take her eyes off of the clown, and decided by the build it must be a man. He was dressed in oversized yellow trousers that were held up by blue and white polka dot trousers braces. Under the trouser braces he wore a white and red polka dot shirt. The clown's hair was bright blue, and Rose noticed that the clown's face looked smudged, wonky almost. Once the food had been purchased, Rose and Clara made their way back to Annie, only to find her seat empty. Without panicking too much, Clara knew she couldn't be too far away. She scanned the table to see if she had moved seats, but there was no sign of her. Looking around further afield, Clara could feel her pulse racing. Where could she have gone? She was only gone 10 minutes, maybe 15 tops. Clara asked Rose if she could see Annie, and Rose shook her head, scanning the festival frantically trying to find Annie's face, but she was nowhere to be seen. Clara's calm demeanor had shifted to full-blown panic. She could not see Annie anywhere and began shouting her name frantically, all whilst intermittently asking Rose if she can see her. People started to come to Clara and ask if she was okay, seeing the stress and panic on her face. "It's my daughter," Clara was telling anyone that would listen. "She was here minutes ago carving a pumpkin. She was literally just here. Please, she's gone. I can't find her. Someone must have seen her. Annie, has anyone seen my daughter? Rose, can you see her?" Clara could feel the panic rising. Annie really was gone. Within minutes the whole festival was turned upside down. The police were called, but still no one could find the little girl. The only remnants found of Annie was her headband with the 3 autumn flowers on the side. It was found on the grass on the opposite side of the field from where Annie had last been seen, and beyond where the festival had taken place, leading the police to believe she may have left the festival before she was noticed as missing. The search continued throughout the night, with many residents and businesses being questioned. The only thing that stood out as odd was that a few people had reported seeing a clown. The same clown Rose had spotted. On investigation, it became clear that there was no stall or activity at the festival that would have explained a clown being there. No one knew who the clown was, nor what he was doing there. 2 days passed without any links or clues as to where Annie had gone. The police continued to search, as did the local residents. Flyers were made and the local media showed up to cover the story. None of this helped to find Annie. That was until 4 days later, the 9th of October. A local man named John was walking his dog down by the river of Plum Grove Forest when he noticed his dog was pulling at what looked like a dummy. The head of the dummy looked like a pumpkin, allowing John to believe it was a Guy Fawkes. Being so close to bonfire night, this made sense. On approaching the Guy Fawkes, John noticed an awful smell coming from the dummy and decided to take a closer look. On further inspection, he noticed the pumpkin was coming away from the body of the dummy, and underneath John could just make out a human face and hair. Not quite believing what he was looking at, John quickly got out his mobile phone and called the authorities. Within minutes the wood was swarming with police and the media had turned up. It didn't take long for the awful truth to be realized. This was not a Guy Fawkes, it was in fact Annie Paling. Annie's parents were informed of the awful discovery and the whole town reeled from the shock. Annie had suffered blunt force trauma to the head. The pathologist believed the injuries were caused by having the pumpkin forced onto her head. It seemed the pumpkin had not been hulled out before it was forced over Annie's head like a mask. The police continued to investigate, promising to not close the case until justice was served. But the case soon went cold. The following year, the first Saturday of October fell on the 1st of October. The fall festival was arranged as usual, although many residents wasn't not sure it was appropriate after what had happened to poor Annie only the year before, but hoping it would lift the spirits of the town, the fall festival went ahead. Everything seemed to go smoothly, until around 6 p.m. that was when a mother could be heard shouting, "Have you seen my boy? He was just here. He was right next to me. I was just paying for something and I can't find him. Someone please help me. Todd, where are you?" The whole festival seemed to stand still. Surely this couldn't be happening again. Only it was. No one could locate the 6-year-old boy named Todd. Just as before, the police showed up within minutes. The festival was turned upside down, and just as with Annie, no one could find Todd. In the hours that followed, Todd's hat was located in pretty much the same place as Annie's headband had been found the year before, causing more questions than answers. 5 days later, a group of teenagers were investigating an abandoned building in the woods of Heritage Park when they came across a foul smell emanating from the back of the building. On taking a closer look, the teenagers noticed what looked like a mannequin, only the head was replaced with a rotting pumpkin. One of the teenagers picked up a stick and started to poke at the pumpkin, and that's when he saw it. Underneath the rotting pumpkin flesh was a human head. The teenager could not form the words to say what he was looking at before he started screaming and running away from the building, with his friends following quickly behind him. Soon the police were on the scene, and just as with Annie, they had found Todd. He had the exact same injuries as Annie, blunt force trauma to the head. The pathologist again believed the injuries on Todd's head were sufficient, with someone forcing the pumpkin over his head, like a mask. The town was in shock, and convinced both crimes had been committed by the same person. Once again, the only consistent information gathered from residents by the police was that a few people had remembered seeing a clown just before Todd went missing. But no one saw the clown again after Todd was missing. This time the clown was reported to have had bright red hair, and not the blue hair allegedly seen on the clown that was spotted around the time Annie went missing. By the time the fall of 2017 came around, no one in Creve Coeur wanted to host the fall festival. It seemed almost dangerous to plan, never mind disrespectful of the families still struggling with the loss of Annie and Todd. Instead, a vigil was held to remember Annie and Todd, and try to generate more leads to help bring justice to the victims and families involved. Many residents turned up to show their respects, and law enforcement officers attended to give a speech asking people to cast their minds back to the day that Annie and Todd went missing. It was during one of these speeches given by Officer McLean that the familiar dread of cries from a mother filled the air. "Mackenzie, Mackenzie? Has anyone seen my daughter? Please. Mackenzie, Mackenzie, where are you?" The crowd started frantically trying to help the mother, who was now hysterically crying out her child's name. The police quickly radioed for more units. But it was no use. 7-year-old Mackenzie was gone. 3 days later, Mackenzie was found. The same injuries that had caused Annie and Todd's death was evident on tiny Mackenzie's body. Her head was crushed by a pumpkin that was now in place of her head. The town seemed to stand still. Christmas fairs and Easter hunts were all cancelled. There were no town gatherings after the 7th of October. Losing Mackenzie as well as Annie and Todd put an end to all that brought the town together. To the current day, no one has been charged with the murders of Annie, Todd, or Mackenzie, and there have been many more sightings of people seeing a lone clown in Creve Coeur. The clown is always reported to have red or blue hair, with the added addition on big pointy teeth. Even more curious, the sightings of seeing the lone clown are always on the first Saturday in October.